Welcome back, everybody. This episode, I'm really excited about. It's going to give you a little bit of insight into us as a company beyond DogBone. We're not going to talk a lot of dog stuff in this one. It was part of a podcast that we did with friends of ours, Tom Rainey from Browning Trail Cameras, Derek from Hunt the Break. We did it down at Deerfest. We recorded one podcast, and we've decided to break it into two. One of the podcasts specifically covers DogBone, and we've posted that one already.
It's the last one.
We posted that, and now what we are going to do is have our second part, which breaks down another part of our business, another brand of ours. It's called HODAG. It's a product called the HODAG Licking Stick. If you are a deer hunter, I think you'll be interested in it. It's something that we've worked really hard on since 2007, so it's coming up on a little bit of time. But I share the story kind of behind HODAG and give you a little more insight to it. So thank you for tuning in. Like I said, we break the mold a little bit with the format of this one, but I don't think it's any less interesting, especially this time of year. Leading into the fall. So I hope you enjoy it. Do me a favor if you would. Continue to listen, continue to support, continue to send us questions. We're sitting down. We're going to be recording several podcasts here this morning, but this is one that is exciting for us to be able to bring you. So enjoy it and let us know what you think.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, day 2, 10th annual Deerfest here in West Bend, Wisconsin. Tom Rainey here from Browning Trail Cameras with the Break Podcast with Derek Dirnberger. And we have my good friend, Mr. Jeremy Moore here. We're going to talk about both of his companies this afternoon. We're going to talk about HODAG Licking Stick, and we're going to talk about DogBoneHunter, because they're both interesting to me because I don't know anything about either one of them.
Well, I appreciate you having me, big fella.
It'll be fun. So I guess let's kick off talking a little bit about Deerfest real quick. You know, this thing is something I've been to for about 6-7 years now. I think I may have. Did I meet you here? I think I probably met you at Randy Birdsong's St. Jude event first, right?
That was the first time, yeah. But for us, Deerfest, out of 10 years, last year is the only year we didn't actually have a booth.
Yeah.
So it was, and it just was a scheduling thing. But yeah, the first time we really met was Birdsong's, for sure. and we really met.
Yes, we did. We were laughing earlier. That event's next week. That's such a good event. We raised so much money for St. Jude. But you do meet a lot of people at that event.
It's never a disappointment.
Birdsong and his social circles keep everybody moving. So what we'll start with today, we'll start with the HODAG Licking Stick. Yeah. Actually, what I want to start with is...
Well, the first thing I asked is, what's a HODAG?
Sure. That's a great question, Derek. So it means nothing. HODAG actually is, so I'm from a really small town in named Rhinelander. It's in northern Wisconsin. So we do a show like this at Deerfest in Wisconsin. People actually will recognize HODAG. I think they think it's a country music festival that we went to, because there is a HODAG country music festival. It's probably what Rhinelander is really well known for.
That's a hoedown in Tennessee.
Exactly. But HODAG it's a strange story, but it's a mythological creature that in the late 1800s in Oneida County, Wisconsin, which is way up north, logging community. They're a big paper community now, but they had a guy come out of the woods and say he captured this animal, and he brought it to the Oneida County Fair. He charged people $1 to come and see it. He put it in a little tent. It was dark. People would come in. He rigged it up so that it would make noises. It scared the people. They ran out, and more people came in. And so this guy made a living doing it. And what ended up happening was the Smithsonian wrote a letter and said, we're going to come and see this HODAG because we've heard about it. And he had to basically say, I made it all up. So from that point on, Rhinelander was known as HODAG country. I'm from that hometown, and it's a weird word. And so when we were thinking about building this product line, our shift went to don't build a product, build a brand. And so we called it HODAG, and from HODAG, we've created the Licking Stick, and then the Licking Stick, we've got some other products that we've got in line behind it. So.
We got Rut Daniels over here holding court.
I have to laugh because my son really likes the guy, loves this guy. My son is like, dude, you got to see this. And
Rut.
So I had to have my son meet the Rut himself because Legendary.
Seems like a good kid. I don't want to interrupt what you're doing. I'm a celebrity shooting to win, but
you have to go shoot that world-class Hoyt.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday she let me down, but she won't today.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your
Yes, sir. Good luck.
Hey, good to meet you.
I love that guy.
It's hilarious. So that's the story behind HODAG. It's just a name from the small town that I'm from.
Right.
And I like old stuff and I like history stuff, and so we decided, my partner and I said, we had to come up with a brand instead of a product. And so the Licking Stick is really our kind of our flagship product under that line. But our intentions and where the direction we're going to go, probably with our patents and our patent coverages, is to create this product family, which is really scent communication for deer.
Okay.
In an effective way. I love, so we've used some of the Browning trail cameras in the last couple of years as major marketing tools for us, because that product, what I love about that product is it's so visual.
Mm-hmm.
But a trail camera to me is a very valuable tool. It's only as valuable as what I can put in front of it. And so if the deer doesn't go in front of it, I don't get the good picture, I don't get the good video. And so that's where that product line marries up so closely to a trail camera. But our tagline is inventory, pattern, and hunt, and we feel like that's exactly what we're doing with these.
I like it. Inventory, pattern, hunt.
Yeah, simple. Hey man,
I like the way that is, because usually mine is hunt, because it's not kill, because I can't shoot and I can't see, and
that happens too occasionally.
So hunt's an appropriate word for me.
Yeah.
So how'd you come up with the idea? It's a neat system you have there.
So the story behind it was years ago, 2005, 2006. We were putting in a food plot, and it was on a piece of property. It was actually a buddy of mine that was doing it. We put this food plot in, and we dished it up. Now, so we're talking small food plot, kill plot, really, is what I think most people would refer to it as. I mean, we're talking like 1/8 of an acre, maybe smaller than that. It was in the woods, though, and it was kind of thick. It was like a popple slashing. It was just real thick, small undergrowth. And we dished it up, and we used ATVs. It was that small. And by the end of it, when you first work a food plot up, it's not very clean. It doesn't look as pretty as a worked field. So this is exactly that. Lots of roots, lots of little saplings. Well, we got most of them, but there happened to be this one sapling that didn't get dished under. And we're talking a sapling like in 3/4 of an inch diameter at the base. So it's not very big. It's 5 feet tall. And so we seeded that food plot out, and we came back and we realized that nothing grew around that sapling. None of the seed. And I thought, it's really strange. So we put a camera on it. And on a relatively small piece of property that I had back then, it was 80 acres. I ran enough cameras that I felt like I would recognize just about every buck that was 2 years old or older, that I could say that is this deer consistently. Within 2 weeks, every deer on that every buck I could recognize was at that stick, and they were interacting with it. But I had my camera on pictures, and so it was like, why did they come to it? I don't know. Well, we realized we didn't really care why. We just wanted to know, could I do it somewhere else? So we rigged up a bunch of different prototypes where I'm a dog guy, so we used a screw-in dog stake. And we put a stick in it, and I had just drywall screws in it. And I'm trying to figure out, how can I hold these trees up where I want them? We ended up getting through a lot of different prototypes, and eventually I was at work one day, and I thought, what about a spring? Like if a spring held this thing up. And so I went to a hardware store, I bought one, I had a buddy weld it up for me. So we ended up, we put these trees exactly where we wanted them, and we wanted to see if the deer would come to them. And I think it was a curiosity thing. I think it was something where they saw this visual change, and they were curious. And so we started putting them where we wanted them, putting cameras on them, and all of a sudden we're getting one deer to come touch it, then another deer, then another deer, then another deer. Again, not knowing exactly why, and this was a while ago, and when I Googled it, scrapes and rubs, everybody knew about them. Greg Miller wrote that book in the 80s, hunting rub lines and scrapes, and that was real common. But licking sticks are different, and so I ended up talking with a guy that's a deer farmer. He's a deer farmer. He raises deer, And I told him about it, and he goes, yeah, they use them all the time. They're not rubs or scrapes. They're just licking sticks.
Yeah.
And these deer, they communicate. They keep tabs of the other deer with it. So we figured that's kind of what we were doing. And then we ended up evolving the design of it, and we decided to make it the easiest, quickest way to put these things in, take them out, and basically program or condition deer to go to a spot.
Yep.
And it's real natural for them to do that. That's how deer communicate. So the difference, a big difference is it's does, fawns, it's bucks. It's all year long. They're not just using it during the rut. I got pictures of fawns that are a couple weeks old. Like they're spots. They're little, but they come up to it and they almost play with it like a little cat would play with a little toy. It's really interesting to see the way different deer interact. And sometimes the deer will come up to it and really work it. Sometimes the deer will come up to it and they just touch it with their nose. So it's interesting. But what it does is it's literally maximizing my trail camera.
Yeah.
And for me as a hunter, I run into my wife shot one for North America. We do some stuff with North American whitetail, and my wife shot a buck with a rifle in November 17th or whatever it was in Wisconsin, and that deer came to a pond, drank out of a pond, and then he walked over to the licking stick, and there was another buck there, and so they almost became a little territorial about the thing, and that buck kind of walked off. This younger buck bristled up. It was real cool footage, and then he turns and he goes back to it, and my wife shot him. So from a hunting standpoint, it actually can play into a value there as well. Mm-hmm. So it was, it's one of those things that it almost came because of accident. Like we accidentally left a little sapling, and it happened to be the thing that triggered the idea of, I wonder why the deer are doing this. Mm-hmm. So
it fascinates me. Like I still think that I'm still convinced, wrongfully so, that like I stuck a bunch of those out in my field, the deer would leave the county. They'd be like, "What is this crap out here?"
It's interesting. It's interesting because I do think that it starts out visual.
Yeah.
We put scent. I make a scent. So this evolution.
That was what I was going to ask you. Is like, do you make the scents that you can like put on the licking stick?
We call it all season scent, and the reason we do it is because we don't want people to think it's driven by times of year.
Right.
So I want to be really clear. It's not glands. There's no secretions. There's no urine. It's nothing to do with deer or any animals. It's not food. It's not designed to be consumed. It is merely a curiosity scent that creates physical interaction with the deer. And I know a lot of people, you don't want the deer touching that because of CWD and all that. I'm in Wisconsin, man. I'm in the heart of that stuff. The reality is, deer, and this is a huge debate, a big door I don't want to necessarily open up, but the reality is...
Don't worry, we're not smart enough to walk through it.
Deer use licking sticks in the wild all the time. They communicate. That's the way they communicate. Their bodies are built for it. A buck has 8 scent glands. A doe has 7. 4 of them are located on their face: nasal, salivary, preorbital, forehead. Those 4 are on their heads for a reason, and so that's how they communicate, keep tabs of each other. But what we're doing is replicating what they do in the wild, but I'm doing it exactly where I want to. One of my best licking sticks is on a food plot, and I sat in the stand for 2 years and watched deer go to a stick out in the woods, like at a distance, 100 yards away, and they go up and they touch this stick, and I go, why are they doing it? It's not a rub, it's not a scrape. It happens early before the rubbing and scraping. I'm seeing them in mid-September doing it. I see them all through the season go to this spot. So finally one day I just walked over to it. And here it is. It's a hardwood. I don't even know what kind of tree it is because there's no leaves, there's no branches. It's smooth. It looks like a pool cue. And it's about the size of it's about 1 inch in diameter, and it's just polished up. But it's a tree, and it didn't break it. And so I was like, damn, that's a spot they always go to. So I clipped it off. I put it in the base, our spring base. I put it in my food plot, and I anchored it in front of my tree stand at 20 yards. Now all of a sudden I got a 20-yardage marker built in.
Right.
But every deer found it, and they just kept coming to it. And so all I did was move it. All I did was move what they were already doing in the spot that I wanted. When we put them in new, we're stimulating that action in a new spot. And so they see it. Hey, if you go home you're gonna be home Monday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. if someone put a tree in your yard that wasn't there when you left, trust me, you'll notice it. And now,
I don't know. I might not.
now, okay, in your living room. Let's say someone puts it in your
There we
living
go.
room, right?
As long as it's not between me and the TV.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to notice it. And that's what happens is these deer notice it. And then by us putting that scent on it, all we're doing is triggering the physical interaction for them to touch it.
Right.
And that happens through the scent. It also happens, there's some tactics to it. I like to use a tree that I don't leave a lot of leaves on it because it blows in the wind, it trips your camera.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't leave a lot of leaves, but what I will do is certain trees, basswood is one of them, that I have found the deer absolutely love the leaves on it. So when I anchor that base and I put a little piece of basswood in it, the does, the fawns, the bucks, they all come up to it because of visual curiosity, but then they eat the leaves off of it. Like within a day, all the leaves are gone.
Yeah.
So I always leave leaves on that one, and then by them eating it, they're hitting it with their saliva glands. And so whether they like it or not, they're scent marking it. And then the key is I don't want to refresh that scent. I don't want to have to go in there at all. Mm-hmm. With the evolution of cell cams now, where you don't even have to go in the woods to check them. But I don't have any of those, but I go about once a month in the summertime to check my cameras. And so by me having something that they consistently go to, and once a deer touches it, then the next deer wants to touch it, and the next deer wants to touch it, it just snowballs. And so by the time I get these things going, they're self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Bait, minerals, first off, they're illegal in a lot of spots. By where I hunt, they are illegal. And it seems like there's a trend. It's going that direction in a lot of places. The thing about bait is I think you can get really good pictures on bait. The problem is by the time I figure out a pattern on any deer, he's got me patterned because I have to go back and consistently put the bait out.
Yeah.
This is self-sustaining. This is something that you let the deer do the work for you.
And you leave all your setups up year round?
Yeah. And anytime I have a camera up, I do.
Now, how long will that? So you cut the sapling or the branch down, you
Yep.
put it in there. How long will it be effective, for lack of a better word?
Totally depends on the amount of interaction you get.
Mm-hmm.
So the more interaction, the more stimulates more interaction. So like the physical touching part of it, they will use it more.
Right.
As far as how it stands up, that's where the spring comes in. So the spring, if you have a rigid anchoring point, they'll break it off. Between the weather and between the deer and the bears and anything else that get into it, like we have videos of bears that come up to these, they grab a hold of them and they roll over on their back and they play with it. But then when they let it go, it stands straight back up because it's on a spring. And that's where the design of the spring comes in, where it saves these sticks from getting broken off. And so how long will it last? Different trees last a little bit longer. Hardwoods always last the longest, but I use popple a lot. Aspen, some people call it aspen, but we call it popple around here. But a popple dries out and becomes pretty brittle. Mm-hmm. But I have some that, depending on how, now as you get into like October, mid-October through November, they're going to start rubbing on, the bucks will start rubbing on it, and they'll start scraping it. And we have video of deer that actually, they get their horns into there and they start to shred it, and they'll kind of like turn their head and crack the stick. A lot of times that happens. And so as long as the deer continue to use it, if it breaks off and it's high enough that the deer can still see it, they'll use it. If they stop using it, I just switch the tree. I just put another one in and I resent it. But how long I have that original, like that real licking stick that I found in the woods. This is on its third year.
Oh, no kidding.
And if I could clone it, I would, because it's the best. Like it gets the best interaction. So my partner Scott, he's down in Iowa. He's got land in southern Wisconsin too, and he told me, he said, I am going to bring in, when this tree gives in, because he's got one that's just like the best tree ever, and he said when it gives in, we're going to put it in glass and we're going to frame it, because it's like what helped build this company, because that tree has just always worked really well.
Huh.
So it
Look,
just
the
depends.
dogs find you.
Yeah, man, I'm just the whisperer. Strange random
The
dogs
dog, all these people in this room, that dog walks straight over here.
Whatever.
He knows where to go.
That's right.
How long does it typically take for a deer to start interacting with it?
Great question. I have had some that look perfect, and they don't get touched. my thing is always, if there's deer, so this isn't something designed to draw deer to an area. It's something you put in an area that the deer are generally using to begin with, but this puts them in a spot. So it's for that inventory, it's for that patterning, and then for hunting. So if I'm getting a bunch of deer on camera, but they're not touching the stick, I realize I need to change something. So there's a lot of options. You can change the tree. I have put out certain types of trees in certain spots, and they get ignored. And I think a lot of people have run into this where they put one thing out, it didn't work, and they go, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, every time I rattle the antlers, the buck doesn't come charging.
Right.
But I know rattling antlers works, but it's got to be the right scenario. Mm-hmm. And so I look at it as I got to find the right combination, whether it be tree type, whether it be when we scented it, whether it be the time of year. There's spots where I could put out a licking stick right now, and I'll get a ton of pictures on it. And then about September, right around September 1st, when the bucks go hard horned, all of a sudden I don't get any bucks on it anymore. It's because they're not living there that time of the year. Mm-hmm. They've dispersed, they moved on, crops get taken off. There's spots that I can put a licking stick that works really good, and then all of a sudden the corn gets harvested and no deer go there anymore. So there's all these different variables, but I really think that you put it out, you give it a couple weeks, and if you're not getting the interaction that you think you should, now that doesn't mean big bucks. Like, all I need to get is deer using it. Because I have one spot behind my house that I never get a buck on in the summer. Never. I don't think any bucks live around here. I mean, where I live, there just aren't a lot of bucks. They get shot. You don't get a lot of mature deer when they're all dead in the back of a truck
right.
as a nubby. So it's a struggle. But I'll get lots of does. And so I have some doe families that live in that immediate area behind my house. It's safe. They'll fawn there. They'll raise them through the summer. So as long as I got the does using it in June, July, August, I'm good. Because as soon as about mid-September to early October, every year, all of a sudden, one night, there'll be 2 bucks come. And then another buck comes, and then another buck comes. But the reality is I've got 3 or 4 mature does with fawns that use it during the summer. They live there. They're not going anywhere. The bucks relocate. They move. They disperse. And all of a sudden, about that time that the bucks start thinking about does, if the does are there using the stick, the buck comes. And so I have to be very patient on those spots. And it gets a little bit frustrating because I'd like to check the cameras and find a good deer on it.
Right.
But I just, over years and years and years, I've realized it's not going to happen. There are other spots, that are hay fields. I don't put them in the hay fields until the farmer takes the last crop. Well, that's usually September.
Right.
So I will put one out as soon as they cut that last cut. I'll put one out, and those deer are used to coming into that hay field. They're conditioned to come into the hay field, and all of a sudden, it's like that scenario where one morning they come and there's a new tree, or one night they come and there's a new tree. They're curious. They get downwind of it. They smell that scent. They start to touch it. So they're just, and then there's little kill plots that are way up in the woods, and I use them year round. I pull them out when we disc it up or when we mow it, and then I put it right back in. So that's the nice part about being fast, quick, and easy.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, the whole concept of it's interesting. But you said something that actually resonated with me about how it's not meant to draw the deer into an area, because the first time I just saw the video, I hadn't even talked to you about it. I didn't know what it was. Like, my initial thought was like, why is a deer coming into the area?
Right.
So that explanation, as brief and as simplified as it is,
right,
helps resonate and makes sense to me, because then you put it like in high traffic areas and you
totally
kind of learn how to use the sticks. Because I think that's a learning curve for me, is
yes,
how to use it, because I would venture to guess that it would be dictated maybe by what kind of saplings we have on our property that they might be familiar with. If it's a poplar, because that's what we've got, a lot of poplar, a lot of oak. So if I have those hardwood saplings and I use those, maybe they might be more likely to use the stick.
Right. I think, I've gotten feedback and I've talked to people and we get messages, and I have had some people message me and they're just terribly disappointed. And I go, what happened? Because I want to help you. If you're not getting pictures, send me a message, because I'll tell you what I would try.
Right.
And I had a guy send me maps of his land. And I said, here's what I would try one, here's what I would try one, this is what I have him send me pictures of it so I can say, this, I would change this, I would change this. But anyway, I had this one guy that messaged me, and he was just terribly disappointed. I dug into it with him, and I'm sending him messages back and forth. And he said, I saw all these big deer on these videos, and this is why a lot of our videos are going to show does and fawns too, because the reality is it's not all big deer. But this guy said, I saw all these big bucks, and I put it out, and I'm not getting anything like that. And I said, really? And I said, well, what are you getting? He said, well, I got a lot of yearling bucks on it, and I got a lot of does and fawns, but nothing mature. And I said, well, how many big mature deer do you get on camera often? Not on the licking stick. None. I don't get any. And I said, well, Jesus, man, this son of a bitch isn't going to make them old. Like, it's just going to help. Whatever deer you have, you're going to get pictures of.
Yeah.
But it doesn't all of a sudden, draw mature deer out of nowhere. So I do think that people have to have realistic expectations, and you have to understand that, this will work. This will work as well as you put it into play and where you put it into play.
It's funny you say that, because that was actually a portion of our trail camera seminar that we just did, was setting realistic expectations.
Totally.
Because, that's important with all of this stuff.
Absolutely.
Like how much prep work you do on the front end, what are your expectations? Let's manage those effectively.
It's overlooked. And I get it. Because, just trust me, I consume as much marketing as I can for lots of different reasons. And there are certain things that I see out there that get me really excited. And the reason they get me excited is because they paint a picture that I envision myself living in. And then I realize the ugly truth of, man, I just don't live in that scenario necessarily. But the function of whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not working. It's just working differently in accordance with what you're putting it into play with. So I think that's something that people have to realize.
Now, on the licking sticks, do you see scenarios where maybe 2 or 3 different bucks are coming in really leading up to breeding season, where they try to establish dominance?
Totally. We call it guarding the stick. So here's one thing that has become really valuable: video, as opposed to pictures. Now, I know it's a pain to check. Trust me, I know it's a pain, because it takes a long time to look at these videos.
Right.
But here's the difference between when you have and this is what I found. When you're checking a card that was on a licking stick, you realize that you real quickly, if it's something that's actually going to interact with the licking stick, or if it's just something else that's at a distance or trip this camera. But if you got a camera on a trail and it starts video, and you're watching it and there's nothing there, you got to watch the whole 10 seconds, the whole 30 seconds, whatever it is, because you don't know what's going to come. And nine times out of 10, maybe it's even more than that, it's not exactly what I wanted. It's not as what I had hoped. The nice part about video for licking sticks is, first off, if you don't have it on video, you miss a lot. So like you were talking about this dominance thing, we got a lot of video where there's a buck that will come up and work the licking stick, and you can see there's other deer with him, and all of a sudden the video's playing, and all of a sudden the deer are running around the food plot, and this one buck is chasing the other one away. And then the next video, he's coming back to the licking stick and he's touching it again. And then he chases the other buck off. And then all of a sudden that buck flip-flops and comes in and he scent marks it, especially around when you're kind of leading up to pre-rut.
Yeah.
And I just think what these deer are doing is jockeying to establish an area.
Right.
And they're kind of claiming territory, but you would never know what's going on without having video.
Yeah.
And to me, video has changed the way I interpret deer information, because when you have it on video, you know what way the deer comes in from, and you know what way the deer walks off. Where if it's a picture, you don't always get the true story. I've literally put cameras on the same post on the licking stick, one camera on top of the other, one on video, one on stills, to see if I really saw the value of video. I'll never run a camera on a licking stick. I'll never run a camera on stills, because I just don't see the whole picture.
Yep.
I can see that. That was also kind of a topic we put in on that seminar, where we were talking about pre-rut. Like if you've got a picture, you see the buck, you see 3 does. You don't know what's going on.
Right.
If you're running video pre-rut, you see him when he starts to tend. You see him when he starts getting aggressive, and all of a sudden you've got more information.
Absolutely.
So it's the same deal with the licking sticks. I mean,
it's super cool.
yeah. Those
those cameras that I have What's the one that's got the viewfinder? 2-inch viewfinder.
I think you've got I think you've got the Spec Ops or the Recon Force Advantage.
Recon Force
it's
Advantage,
one of those
that's what it
two.
is, yeah. So, first off, I really like it from the positioning standpoint because for me, I need to make sure it's got the licking stick positioned right.
Gotta
I
frame
don't
it,
want it
yep.
on the left or the right. I don't want it because I want it centered in the frame so that I can get as much information all the way around it, right? So that little viewfinder helps me do that. I really like that. But what's cool is the volume. You get the audio.
Oh, yeah.
And now I got these bucks. I might not have anything in the film, like I can't see anything on the screen, but all of a sudden I hear and he's getting closer, and I'm going, holy shit, here it comes. and then he goes through, and I'm going, this is just cool.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it makes. I've gotten weird about cameras, man. I enjoy the camera part almost as much as the hunting part.
Oh, yeah.
Like I just love this idea of being able to put pieces together, and then but I've got kids, and my kids hunt, and I find way more value and enjoyment out of my kids killing deer than myself these days.
Yeah.
And so for me, this is how I get my fix, is the idea of figure these deer out using those tools.
Yep.
And then ultimately be able to kind of bring it full circle.
Yeah.
I still love eating them, obviously, so I still get to do that. But the shooting part, to me, I just had this conversation at our booth with the guy about having young kids kill big deer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some people say, oh, you spoil them and you can't. The hell with that. Let them shoot let them shoot them all. Because one guy was telling me, yeah, but this kid doesn't understand it now. He's 12 years old and he killed this big deer. And I said, yeah, but he's hooked for the rest of his life.
Yep.
You'll never lose him as a hunter.
Yeah.
So, that's a separate subject, but I just think that's an important part of it is, for me, I get to do everything and then tee up my kids. Oh, hell, man.
Yeah.
If my dad could have done that for me, he'd have done it. We just didn't have the opportunity. I do. Why not do it?
Right.
I'm just walking uphill both ways to school.
Yeah, I know.
Snow,
Grandpa.
barefoot.
Grandpa.
Well,
I hear
you talk about shooting deer, so that gives us an opportunity to segue here. But before we do that, where can people find you on the internet? Is it HODAG Licking Stick?
TheLickingStick.com.
TheLickingStick.com.
And then all our social HODAG Licking Stick. Yeah, so HODAG Licking Stick is all of our social tag.
And that's HODAG.
Yeah, yep.
So if you're looking for him, he's got social platforms on Facebook, Instagram,
YouTube.
Yeah, because YouTube would be a good place to go because of those videos, because they're so
man.
cool to go through
and
those.
we are so heavy in video because this started. Our first patent was in 2007. We had a second patent in 2015, but I have pictures. We have we do a little. We have all these little. I don't know. They're not really commercials, but they're little video things and promo things. And we have one that's really kind of. I think it's kind of funny, but it talks about how a lot of things have changed when it comes to scouting deer. And so we show this trail camera that was like one of the first ones I ever had that did video, and it was like earth-shattering back then to get video. Like, I can't believe we're getting a video of a deer, and it is the most pixelated, blurry, ridiculously bad video. But we were so jacked when we saw these deer interacting with the licking stick, and so, but a lot of things have changed. So then we show this video on a Browning, and it's like the most high def. It's like I'm watching a movie. It's like I'm in an aquarium swimming with the damn deer. And so we show that, but the reality is these, the licking stick for us has been a 12-year, 13-year thing that we've developed, and then just recently, because of resources, because we're a small company, and with DogBone it was our focus, and we established ourselves. We tried to establish ourselves from a distribution standpoint and a manufacturing standpoint, all those channels first, and then Licking Stick kind of followed suit. So we're deer hunters, man, and I'm just it's all the stuff we do always leads back to deer or dogs.
Yeah.
I live a very simple life.
And there's our perfect segue right
yes,
there.
It is.
Because what I want to do is, just anybody that's listening, we're going to do a reset, and then we're going to give you some bonus content, because the reset is theLickingStick.com. You can find information there. You can go to Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. HODAG Licking Stick. That's HODAG.
I love opportunities like this. I really appreciate you guys having me giving me the chance to kind of share our story. I think that's I find a lot of interest in other people's stories.
Yeah.
And so I thank you for letting us kind of share ours.
Well, it's our pleasure. I don't know that I've got any more questions. I think you've got me satisfied for this afternoon here at Deerfest.
This was great. Yeah.
I think this will be a good one. So.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you stopping by.
Yep, I was going to say for sure. Once again, Mr. Jeremy Moore with The Licking Stick, and you can find him at thelickingstick.com. You can also find him on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at HODAG Licking Stick. He also has DogBoneHunter, and that's DogBoneHunter.com. DogBoneHunter on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So if you got any questions, you want to find anything out about both of these brands, check those out on the local interweb. And I believe that's going to do it for me and Mr. Derek Dirnberger for today, the second day, 10th annual Deerfest, West Bend, Wisconsin. And we will hope to see you on down the trail.